how could global South nations adapt China's experience, China's modernization method, to their own countries to find their own way to develop?
China is one of the few examples for that global South group that has actually been able to, let's say, break this cycle of underdevelopment, break this cycle of coming from very, very poor, colonized agrarian conditions, and come into a modern project. But through what path? Through a path, and we heard a lot during the 20th National Congress and that amazing report that Xi Jinping gave about not a path that is the Western capitalist path that is about war, colonization, the plunder of, our fellow global South countries. So this, in that sense, it might not be a model, but it definitely has opened a possibility, an alternative for another path of modernization that was not yet possible for underdeveloped global South countries. And in that sense, one thing that we can definitely learn from China for other global South countries is the importance of industrialization. That industrialization is, let's say, a continuation of a national liberation process that hasn't been completed. In so many regions, like in BRICS countries like Brazil or South Africa, that had attained some level of industrialization, have actually been deindustrialized over the last decades of neoliberalism. And in other regions, much poorer regions that have never been able to accumulate enough capital to industrialize, they just maintained its status as sort of a place for Western exploitation, have never been able to actually surpass that and get into the path of industrialization before we even think of modernization. So in that way, I think China is an important role for that and is actually doing things to support the industrialization. For example, China is investing billions of dollars in a country like Bolivia, one of the countries that have never been able to industrialize because of its colonial and imperialist history, but now is actually starting to transition from being an exporter of raw lithium carbonate to becoming a producer of lithium batteries. And who knows, maybe soon their own electric vehicles. And we're seeing that across other places, Zimbabwe, Indonesia, Morocco. Africa now is asking for a shift from infrastructure investment to industrialization projects. That was the last, China-Africa leaders meeting. So we're seeing that importance, China as being a model on industrialization and also supporting fellow global South countries. And ultimately, I think, and my last point I want to say is that it's an important role China is playing, not only in recognizing its position and has strong statements around being of the global South and always being of the global South, that the destinies are tied. Right now, we're in a moment where, US-led imperialism is on decline. Imperialism isn't undefeatable. There are many aspects that we're seeing arise around economic, technological, and other parts where the hegemony of the US is being challenged. Of course, in other ways, we're seeing militarily completely. It has still, the largest war economy than anywhere else. But at the same time, it's really important for these, paths to be created for a future where this imperialism and decline can actually be defeated as a counterweight to that hegemony that has oppressed so many of our peoples and nations. So anyways, that's a long way to say that it's not a model. It has really important lessons, and China is also doing important steps, beginning steps of supporting the industrialization process and supporting the national sovereignty projects of many global South countries.